is a really useful and good light source to create a sharp shadow? A question everybody should ask. Everybody has to ask if he wants to work with shadows. I already mentioned that it is obviously possible to take away the figure, the puppet, from the screen, and the shadow gets bigger, but it remains sharp, other than you see it here at the moment. In the early 80s of the last century, this was the reason to guide the small Asian art of shadow play into contemporary shadow theater with its fascinating possibilities, of which I will show some later on. And the reason for this is a specific feature of the light source, namely the concentration of its radiation within only one point. As an example, let me show you a common bulb. Here it is, and you see I've dimmed it down to show you what it really is. There's a wire inside. It's about 5 centimeters long, and that wire is glowing. And if I turn it on now and I stay on the screen, the traditional Asian shadow play, everything is okay. The light leaves the wire from each and every point, from the bottom, from the top, and from each and every point in between. It hits my hand, and the shadow behind my hand is sharp, because behind my hand there is no way left for the light to go. If now I put my hand in between, you see what happens. There's still the light leaving the wire from each and every point, from the bottom and the top, but the light that leaves the wire from bottom comes with a slightly different angle to the edge of my hand than the light that leaves the wire from top, which means at the edge of my hand these light beams cross and they continue their way to the screen, but because they have a distance, they're a bit wider when touching the screen, and this is the edge of the shadow, which means it has a wide margin and it is blurred. It's not really a good light to use it for our work. This is the fact with the radiation of a bigger surface. The wire is 5 centimeters long, as I said. And now let us have a look at a smaller radiation at a kind of a point. I have a special light here. Here it is, and I dimmed it down. Hopefully you can see that this is almost the point, and that means the angles are very narrow, because a point is a point. There's not much to spread. If I turn it on, this is a 100-watt halogen light, and I hold my hand inside. You see the tradition works. Touching the screen always gives a sharp shadow. The shadow is caught in between my hand and the screen. But if now I leave it, see what happens. The shadow gets bigger because the radiation is smaller from a smaller point. The shadow, the margin of the shadow is also small, which means it's sharp. And I can go very close. It still works. The only thing is that this is, as I said, a 100-watt halogen, and if I would touch it, I will not do this now. If I would touch it up here, it's a bit difficult because it's getting hot. Which means you can tell a story with a light like this, with a 100-watt halogen, but you have to take care not to burn yourself, which I did several times. I made a story with that, the Treasure Island in 2000. It works, but it's not the best. I was lucky to meet the right guy at the right time. He was an electrician, and he could manufacture the lights that I had in my mind. We made quite a long journey together, about 10 years, and we've built new light sources again and again. We've done and tried a lot of things. We went to the scrap yard and we turned out the bulbs of the cars and we succeeded. We found the best light source. Here it is. Here it is. And again, this is low light so that you can see that this is just a point. Now, if I turn it on, it's getting pretty bright. If I touch the screen, everything is okay. If I leave the screen, it remains okay. And I can go very, very close to the light source. You see, I almost touch it now. It's 4 or 5 centimeters away, and still the shadow is very sharp. If you look at my hair, the hair of my arm, you see, I almost touch the light, and still you could take a pencil and draw the lines of the hair on my arm in the shadow. This is the best you can have. So we have sharp shadows, which open totally new possibilities, which I still will show, but not much light. A point is just a point. We have solved this problem by putting more power in these little bulbs than they are meant to have. You have to change them a bit earlier, but it's worth doing it because you can lit a screen, a surface of 3 to 3 square meters, which is already quite a lot. And there are also, as I already mentioned, good light sources among the LED. For the beginning, it might be already enough to take an LED torch, as I showed one in the little tutorial before. Usually, they have a small plastic lens inside. So if you go into a shop and have a look for LED torches, before you buy it, try to find out if you can remove this little lens. Because these lenses are made to gather the light, to collect it, or to diffuse it. And that really irritates your shadow. That confuses him totally. So if you can remove the little lens, no problem. Buy it, you might have a good light source for the beginning already. Here is another one, also an LED from our workshop. I'll turn it on. You see it's very bright. There's a lot of blue in it. If I start at the screen, everything is okay. If I move towards the light, the shadow remains sharp, very strong, very good contrast, a good shadow to work with. Also a possibility. Conclusion. To get a really sharp shadow, you need a small spot of radiation. They are existing in the halogen and LED area. We have made such lights because it's simply not possible to walk into a shop and say, can I have a good light for shadow theater? And you cannot order them from Amazon, which means it makes sense that we built them, and they are, of course, available at the end of the workshops. But that is another topic. Also another topic is how this point light has been developed, what the circumstances were. And this I will tell you in a tutorial called A Little Story, if you want to listen.